Out. So good evening, everybody. Today I will speak about the Tekufos. It's a subject that comes a lot in Shas, and there's also some halachic implications. Two halachic implications today is, of course, when we say V'sein Talmuto Livrocho. As you know, we say it V'sein Talmuto Livrocho 60 days after Tekufas Tishri. And this is exactly how we today in halachically is when we are saying. That's why we said this week. That's why we said this is V'sein Talmud Levocha on the 5th of December. Now there is another halacha which is less known, but is also in Shulchan Aruch, is that people should not drink water on the time of the Tekufa. It's a sakona kind of. And I thought I saw, but maybe I'm wrong. But I thought I saw also that you should not take blood in order on the time of the kufa. So basically, halachically, it is very important. Halachically, it's important to know when the kufa is, specifically for to know when V'sein Talmuto Livrocho, and like I said, for the halacha of when to drink, not to drink water during a time of the kufa. However, what is there is also a din doraisa that is important to know when the tkufa is. But first we need to define what is a tkufa. So the tkufa has actually two meanings in the Gemara and in Chazal. The same word is used for two different things. I mean, not the different things, but two things. The first one is when you take the whole cycle of a year, which is about 365 days. Then if you split those cycles in 4 different times, then these are called 4 tekufos, in other words, 4 seasons. So sometimes they use that word tekufas Nisan, means actually the whole season of Nisan, which is the season of the spring. So these are the 4 seasons. You have the spring, you have the summer, the autumn, and the winter. So this is the definition of a tekufa. The second definition of a tekufa, which is used a lot in Chazal, but it's using the same word, is the date, the exact date of when a tekufa is starting. So it is the starting date of a tekufa is also called the tekufa. So the date, the exact date on which the tekufa is falling. Now, the reason why we need to know when is the exact date the tekufa is starting is because halachically there is a very important din that shomer es chodesh oviv, that you have to make Pesach on the Chodesh Oviv. So Pesach has to be already after the spring has started. So the month of spring, in that case, Chodesh meaning the month, not the month as a lunar month, but meaning that it is the Tkufa, so it is the season. So Pesach must fall on spring and not on winter. So it may not fall on the winter, it has to fall on the spring. If you see that it cannot fall on the spring, if you see that your calendar is lacking days and it seems to be falling, then you have still an opportunity to add another month, which is called Odor Sheni, and just before Nisan, and then you are sure that it should fall in the next. Theoretically, and I say theoretically, if even that doesn't help, then you can add another month. Yeah, it never happened in history, but I don't think that it is impossible to add 14 months into a year, 15 months as well. I mean, as long as you define, the only thing that you have to define is when is the Chodesh Rishon. You have to define when is going to be Nisan. As long as you don't proclaim Rosh Chodesh as being Nisan, then you can continue doing however you want, as long as you make sure that Pesach should always fall in spring. And the second thing is, it's also that Sukkot has to also fall in Tkufas Tishri. It also says Chag Osif, Tkufas Hashono. So Chazal learned that the Chag Osif has to fall in the Tkufa, in the new season of Tishri, which is autumn. So Sukkot also has to fall on autumn. Machlokes, if the whole Sukkot has to fall on autumn, only Chol HaMoed is enough, or maybe just one day of Sukkot. That's already Machlokes in Gemara in Sanhedrin, a big Machlokes. But generically, the idea is that Sukkot should fall in the autumn month. So it's very important to know the exact day, because if it is one day missing, then we have to be Ma'abed Shono. We have to make a leap year. We have to add an extra month. So it's not just to know when or less it's warm, so now it must be the season of spring. No, we have to know exactly in which day are we going to count the day of spring. Is going to be the start of the day of spring. A day before that, it's winter. A day after that is spring. So it's very important to know exactly the date, because if Pesach just falls on the day before that day, then we have a problem. If it's a day after that day, then we are okay. So it's very important to, Chazal have to tell us, we have to know from Chazal's perspective, the exact date that spring is starting. And then start, of course, the whole discussion. Okay, so as I said, the Pesach must fall in Tekufos Nisan, not winter, not summer. Sukkot must fall in Tishrei, the autumn season, not summer and not winter. So what is the definition of a Tekufos date? So in terms of visibility, how can you see when is the start of a new season? So is there any way that physically you can see there is a start of a new season? Well, there are two ways that you can make a system that you can see it by looking up in the sky. There are two ways. One way is the one that we know, which makes that, which we look at the day where the size of the day is either at its biggest versus the night, or it's either it is equal, where the day and the night are equal, or when the night is the biggest and the day is the shortest, or again when the day and the night are the same. So we can easily just take a chronometer, take a watch. You measure all the time when is the Netzach Hammer, when is the Shkia Sachamo, and then you count how many hours and minutes there are in the day and how many hours and minutes there are in the night. You write it down. Then you see that the night is going bigger and bigger and bigger till it comes to the highest point, and then it starts to go smaller and smaller and smaller. So that day that it was the highest is I think it's the beginning of the summer, and then when it gets smaller and smaller, when it's equal, then it's beginning of the autumn, and then when it's exactly, when you see that it's 12 hours and exactly 12 hours, then it's, you know, it's the autumn, and then when it continues to become smaller and smaller, then you know is when it's already at the smallest point, like on the 21st of December, then it's going to be the beginning of winter. So you just have to measure. It's an easy way to measure. It's easier today because we have a measuring, we have a watch. The time of before the watches, of course, it was much more difficult to know exactly, but it's basically it's something which is visible. Okay, that's one way of seeing it. The second way of seeing it is at the position that the sun is compared to what we call the zodiac, to compare to a certain line of stars, which is going to turn in during the whole year. So what you have to look at on this picture is the yellow is the sun, and we are the Earth, and around us there is such a belt, and we are turning 365 days around the sun. So when we look at the sun is always in front of a certain particular stars. And the more the days are passing by, the more when we look at the sun is in a different sign, in different stars that is in his background. Okay. And so what the astronomists have done in the past, and this is also in Chazal, so they have divided this big belt, the belt that goes round and round, they divided it in 12 equal parts, and they gave that names according to the shape of the big stars in this little sector of 30 degrees. And so basically what they did is they looked at the shape and they gave it a name according to an animal or according to a person, or it can be all kind of different shapes. And what happened is that when the spring is considered is when do we consider the spring? Normally the definition of the spring is of the spring is on the 21st of March, is normally is called the the zodiac of Aries, I think it's called Aries. It's the Tle, yeah, the Tle. I don't know how you call it in English. It's not a sheep, it's a goat, I think it's called. It's a Tle. And this is the time when the sun, when you look at the sun, you look at the background of the sun, it's going to find these stars. Now, you're going to ask me, yeah, but we don't see the stars. When the sun is there, we never see the stars. So what you have to do is, it's early in the morning, when the sun comes up, just before the sun comes up, you can already look at the stars. Sometimes you see the stars, and or when the sun goes down, then you can also see a little bit the stars already. Or what you can do is kind of you calculate. So if you look at the stars in the night, just before the sun goes up and just after the sun went down, you can start to calculate a little bit which is the exact stars where the sun is. What you have to realize is that the idea in the time of Chazal is that the world was central and the stars were turning around in like a belt, like really like a belt, and they were all sticking to a certain belt, and they were turning around, and the sun moved, apparently for them, the sun was moving on this belt, had an extra movement, and he went from one house to the next house. So it's like he moved from one house to the next house, and that's what, whenever he was in a certain house, it had particular, the astrologists believed that it had particular forces, etc. So basically, but it is easy to find, also easy, I mean, it's never easy, but it's visible to see when is going to be the spring, is when the sun goes from the fish, from the muzzle of fish, he enters to the muzzle of Tle. Now we'll see that this is wrong, but at least this is the definition. So we have two ways of seeing when is going to start spring. One of them, it's one that you can feel on this world, which is the number of days, number of hours that you have light and the darkness. If it's equal, the day that it becomes equal, that's the day, that exact day, this is the beginning of spring. And then you have another one, is the day that the sun is moving inside of the muzzle of Tle, okay, of Aries. It's the muzzle of Tle, and that day that it enters, this is considered the spring. Okay, so we have two ways of knowing when starts spring and when not. Chazal give us other synonym for spring, but these are the two. Maybe these are the two also which Chazal mean Tekufos and Oviv. When Chazal say which are the synonym, nobody really understand what's the difference between Tekufos and Oviv. So maybe these are the two definitions. The Tekufa meaning it's depending on the zodiac, on the stars, and Oviv meaning is when the sun, the light is already equal to the darkness. Okay, but that's the way. So it's clear we have a way to identify when is the starting of a spring. So this is the whole idea. Now, what is our calculation of a tkufa? So when we say that tkufa is tkufas Nisan, I think it's going to be 7th of April. So if you look in the calendar of the Yeshivas Etzraim, you're going to find out that it is actually, I forgot already, but it's somewhere in April, 7th of April, I think. So it's going to be something on the 7th of April. And how do we calculate this tkufa? It is nothing to do with astronomy. So unbelievable, but what I'm going to tell you now, maybe you've heard already from me before, but the tkufa that we have today printed in the calendars have absolutely nothing to do with some kind of astronomical value. That's something that you can see or something that you can measure. It's actually simply a very pragmatic simplification, for some even an oversimplification of the reality. So for example, it was Shmuel who did it, and he suggested take the year as being exactly 365 and a quarter, so 365 and 6 hours. We assume that the year is exactly that. We divide it by 4, and so we're saying that all the seasons are equally long, and we're giving it a start date of 5,782 years ago. So we go back to the Kriat Brias Oilom, And then we start adding on all those periods. And then we add every time 91.3125 days to the previous one, and you will always find the next tkufa. So each tkufa you can calculate based on the previous tkufa by adding on 91 days and 3,125. I don't remember how many hours and minutes, but if you add them on all the time, you will find the exact tkufa that is printed in the Yeshivas Eitz Chaim's calendar. Okay, so this is the very simple. Now, why is it not exact? Of course, first of all, the year is not 365,25, but it is less than that. Okay, so the tropical year, which is the year which we count exactly from when the day is equal to the night, when we take the real Tekufas Nisan, to the next Tekufas Nisan, exactly on the same when the sun is in exactly the same position. In that case, it's called the tropical year. This is 365,24 and not 25. So it's a bit shorter. That's the first not exactness. The second not exactness is the seasons are not equal. Some are longer and some are shorter, depending on the position. I think the winter is shorter and the summer is longer, or the other way around. I don't remember anymore. But in any case, I know that one of them is short and the other one is longer. And also the starting point is based on the world being created in Nisan. And okay, that's fine, but there is a machlokes whether it is in Tishri or it is in Nisan. And so basically this calculation bases himself on being created on Nisan, which is basically also the halacha, but I just wanted to make sure that you realize that this is how it's been calculated. So what is the result? Since this tkufa has nothing to do with astronomy, and indeed many times the Pesach will fall long before the tkufa from Shmuel. So in other words, according to the Tkufa Shmuel, spring will start after Pesach. So sometimes Pesach will fall in the end of March. And in other words, it's going to be a few days, many days before the Tkufa. So that means that Pesach will fall in the winter. Now that's on itself is not a problem, because this Tkufa that we are using is not the right Tkufa. But still, it is interesting because this is the tkufa that we are using when we are going to calculate when we should say the Saint Talumoto Livrocha and which are the moments that you should not drink water. So when Chazal are telling us you should not drink water or you should start the Saint Talumoto Livrocha, we are not doing it based on the real tkufa, but we are doing it based on this approximation, averaging, pragmatic calculation. Okay. So that's very, very important to realize. So the tkufa that you have printed has nothing to do with the real tkufa. The real tkufa, if you look at the number of days, if you look at the number of hours of sun versus the night, the day where they both are equal, that would be on the 21st of March. And this one is on the 5th of April. So you already are, I think, like 14 days later than that. Okay, so that's a very important element that we have to take into consideration. But how does it work with our calendar? Can Pesach fall before the winter? So before the spring, I mean. Can Pesach fall still in the winter time when the night is still bigger than the day? Theoretically, we learned that Minat Torah is not allowed to. Shomer es Chodesh Oviv. Pesach has to fall in the springtime. So that's a question. Now we know that our calendar year is 365,246822. That is based on Rav Ada's. I'm not going to go. I want to keep it simple. You have to trust me. This is the number. This is the exact average year that we have in a cycle of 19 years. So we assume that every 19 years, we corrected the whole year with using 7 leap years. So 7 other base, other shenis that we have. In a whole cycle of 19, with this, we correct the whole thing. So this is what our calendar is assuming. The real tropical year, and that's a little bit changing every 10 years. It can be very, very small changes in a second, literally, sometimes even hundreds of seconds, because the world is a bit shaking all the time. But the tropical year is 365,24,21871. So it is a little bit less than our year that we have in our calendar. That means a difference of about 6.7 minutes. Okay, so we have 6.7 minutes difference per year. That's not a lot. However, each 6.7 minutes means that there is a difference in one day each 215 years. So about every 200 years, the calendar, the Tkufa will move one day away. So the Tkufas Nissan will move from the 5th of December to the 6th of December. And 215 years later, it's going to move from the 6th to the 7th. So it's going to move, always is going to move one extra day. Okay, so each 200 years, it's going to move an extra day away from the real. Meanwhile, it's been already 14 days difference with the real, and it's going to become 15 days, 16 days, etc. Each 215 days. Now, when you look, now that's not a problem. Why? Because Pesach is moving away from the winter. The Iker was the Torah did not want us to be Pesach in the winter, right? But also not in the summer. But what we're doing is, for the moment, Pesach is closer to the border with the winter, and it's moving away. So from now on, we are okay. So our calendar, there's no chances that Pesach will fall on in the winter. However, if you look on the earliest that Pesach can be, I've checked it in the last 20 years, it was on the 25th of March. So it can happen that Pesach should fall on the 25th of March, which is about 4 days later than the 21st of March. So it's about 4 days, which is still okay. So there's not a problem. However, if we go back 1,500 years ago, which was in the beginning of this calendar, let's assume that this calendar was built in the time of Abaye and Rove. Okay, so if we go back 1,500 years ago, that means that there is 7 times 210 in 1,500. That means that 7 days before the 25th, it would come out to, it would be possible that Pesach would have fallen on the 18th of March. So somewhere about 1,500 years ago, in our calendar that we have today, if we go back in time, it would be on the 18th of March, which means 3 days before that particular day, that famous day where the night and the day were equal. And that means that we would still be in the winter when we go to the Seder. Okay, so that's quite scary. Now today we already moved that past. This is not possible anymore. But at the time it was possible. And this was also the time when Christianity started. And I will read you the original Kuzari. Not the one that has been already translated from a translation, but I'll read you the original translation of the Kuzari. It's a bit difficult to sometimes read, but this one is quite easy. Ukvar toanu hanocrim ala Yehudim v'choshvu ki iker torosam ovad. They thought of the Jews that they've lost the iker of the religion. And they're not on one line, they're not aligned. Why? So that Pesach would fall before the cheshbon of the Tkufa, which is known, which she befaresia, meaning that it is known, like the one that we can see that the day is still longer than the night. And what the problem is, so he answers, so that is why, according to him, the Christians have taken their own calendar to calculate when will be the Pesach. Their Pesach is called Easter, and they have their own way of calculating it based on the real Tkufa and based on the first Sunday after the second Sunday after the new moon, after that is starting straight after the 21st of March or something like that. So this is called the Tkufa shehi befaresia. But he says, "V'lo yisamu lev el tkusas chamo haberura ho'amitis shehi betzine bilti mefursemes." So he said, but there is a Tekufas Achama. It's not they think that it is the easy one, the one that is Befaresia, but there is one that is hidden, built in Mufursemes. Veshal Cheshboino, and according to that Cheshboin, Lo Yipel Pesach B'Shum Ponim, that Pesach can never fall, Elo Ad Shetochol Hashemesh B'Roish Tle, that it has to fall in the Tkufa of Aries, so in the Tkufa of Tle, Afilo Yom Echad, it will never fall before that. That Pesach will always fall a day after the Tekufa of Aries. For thousands of years, it was always like that, that when Pesach fell, it was always falling in the zodiac of Aries, of Tle. This is one of the famous Arab astronomies. So basically what he says is, he says like that, you are thinking that Oviv, that the Tkufa is the day where the night and the days are the same. So he says, no, it's a mistake. It is actually, Tkufa starts on the day that the sun goes into the Mazel Tle. Okay, like I explained you in the previous slide, it's when the Earth is on this position where you can see that the sun really enters the stars, the picture of the stars, which looks like a Tle. And this is the whole element. There are a lot of Rishonim and Kadmonim that wrote that the reason why Klal Yisrael had to eat a Korban Pesach at Gedi or Tle is because Pesach was on that element, and it was the Tle was their gods, because the Mitzrayim, they believed that their mazel is the mazel of Tle. And so we showed them that punct on that day where they believe that they are the strongest, we will go out of Mitzrayim, and they believe that we were the Levona, our mazel was the mazel from the Levona. But anyway, so there's a lot of Rishonim and Kadmonim that are writing about that element, that the whole idea of Pesach is the entrance of the sun into the zodiac of the Tle. However, yeah, so this is how he explains it. So it is not a tropical year, but it is the sidereal year. It means when we know exactly when the sun is opposite a certain, is in front of a certain shape of stars, which is behind him. However, what there has been already known, even the Rambam knew it, and it has been known already, Ibn Ezra also, it started in the Greek, they have noticed, is that there is a small little problem. And the problem is that there is a difference between the time that the position of and I will show it on this slide here, the time at which the Earth is exactly on that position, and the time when this day and the night are exactly the same, that is not the same time. So the year between when the day and the night are the same till the next time that the day and the night are the same is 20 minutes earlier than the time when the real position of the Earth and the sun came back to the exact same time, because you can see it with the stars on the other side. And it's not the same. And so Lechoire, it's difficult. Why is it not the same? So they didn't know why. In the time of the Greek, they had no idea why. So the only thing they can explain is that the whole belt was moving in about 26,000 years. They realized that this movement was 20 minutes. In other words, it's each 70 years, it moves one day. And this they realized, but they couldn't explain why. So they were thinking that the whole belt that you see here, this belt was also actually turning around. Okay, so it was turning a little bit around very, very slowly. And so therefore, whenever you think that you have still to do a little bit longer to come to that position in order to complete the whole year. So that's what they understood. We know today that the reason why is because the Earth is not turning fixed around its axis, but it is turning in like a dreidel when it's starting to slow down. When you turn a dreidel, the dreidel is very straight. After a certain while, the dreidel starts to move around in the same direction as it turns. So it starts to make all kinds of movement, and this is called precession. It's the precession is the time actually which the Earth is a little bit wobbling around itself, and it makes a whole circle in 26,000 years. Okay, and so in other words, the moment that the Earth is back into the same position as it was originally, that is pushed off by 20 minutes. So it's already 20 minutes later. As the 20 minutes before that, the position of the Earth towards the sun has come to exactly the same time. And only 20 minutes later is the Earth exactly on the same position as it was originally when he left. 20 minutes, it's a big time. Each 70 years, and the Rambam already writes it in his Hilchos Yesod HaTorah, he already writes it that each 70 years, there is one day that it means apart, which means that after 4,000 years, we see already 56 days, nearly 2 months, that the zodiac moved. And so today, on the 21st of March, it is not Aries. It's not Aries. It is not the Tle, but we are in the Piscis, which is the fish. So in other words, on the 21st of March, which is our seasonal spring, so it is spring, but when you look at the sun and you look at the stars at the background, we are still in the fish. So we are still in the muzzle of Odor, basically. And it's only in the month of Iyar, that we will see eventually the Tle. So when the Kuzari says, yes, no, but they don't understand, we don't look at at when the day and the night are equal, but we look at astronomy, we look at the stars. Well, we have a problem, because even in the time of the Kuzari, the sun was already not in the Tle, but it was still in the fish, in the muzzle of the fish. And so therefore it was still in the muzzle of Odor. And so therefore it's not even correct neither. So we are even worse, basically. It is much worse to look at the stars than to look on the days, whether the days are this equal time of the day and the night. And so where the Kuzari answers, he answers something which actually makes it much, much worse. Because even in his time, it was already a differentiation of about 25 days, or made more than 30 days. So there is a big disconnect, and I discussed that with Mr. Eidler. He's from Brussels, an engineer from Brussels. He wrote a lot of Pirushim on the Rambam on Kiddush HaChodesh, and he's also a very big specialist. You can find a lot of very nice articles where he explains everything that I've just discussed now. But I discussed this Kuzari. He didn't know this Kuzari, but it's one of those difficulties, and he agreed with me that it seems that the Kuzari was not well aware of the Mazolois of the zodiac. He did not know that the zodiac sign is also in the winter. So basically, when we look on the zodiac sign, it is only in Iyar that we are in the Tle. So when we are celebrating Pesach, you should know that the sun is not in the Tle, but it is still in the Dogim. And only after nearly, I don't know how many, 1.5 months, it will actually be in the middle of the Tle. So that's quite an impressive difference. Now, the Rambam, not in the Kiddush HaChodesh, but in the Yesod HaTorah, so what he says is, he mentions that this problem, he mentions that already. He also noticed that there is 1 day per 70 years that the zodiac is moving. He did not also know that it's because the wobbling of the earth. He believed that because they move a bit suddenly, they move a little bit slower than the sun. However, what is very interesting that he mentions, and maybe because of that problem, he says, yes, but the stars are in the 8th sphere. So he's got 7 spheres, and then he's got the 8th sphere. The 8th sphere is where the stars are. So these are the belt is. And then there's an extra sphere, which is the 9th sphere, which nothing is visible. It is a purely theoretical sphere. And it's called the Tekufos there is called the tle. The muzzle is tle, not because there is a tle at the back, but because in the front during the mabul, in the front was a tle, and so therefore the whole 30 degrees of the 9th sphere is called tle, and this one is not moving. So basically, he kind of is forced to. That's how I understand. Mr. Eidler did not could not disagree, but also not agree, because he says he's not really, he has to check it up again, and he has to look up what is the 9th sphere. But my idea is that the 9th sphere that the Rambam speaks about is a sphere which is behind the 8th, is the sphere that is not moving. So he believed that there is a 9th sphere which is not moving, and there's an 8th sphere which is moving, and we're calling the one which was at the time of the Yetzias Mitzrayim the Mazel Tle. This 30 degrees behind the 9th sphere, this is fixed. And says this is the one that the problem is that if there is nothing there, we can't see it. So for the Rambam, we don't look anymore on the zodiac to know when is spring, but we only look on when the day is equal to the night. And this is the only time when we actually can speak of a real Oviv. But the Tekufos we can't see anymore, because the Tekufos has moved. And as I said, 70 years, and it moves one day during a period of 70 years. So we can't move. Basically, what I wanted to say is we cannot use that as an argument anymore. We can't use that, because if we use that as a point, then we are in trouble, because then our calendar is completely off track. And if we're going to use that, then it means that in a few hundred of years, Pesach would fall in the summer. So if we would say yes, but the true we'll go like the Kuzari, and we have to correct our calendar, Pesach will very, very soon will start properly in the summer. And this is not, Oviv means as well that it's the beginning of the Ktsira of the Resh Ktsirchem. So it must be that we cannot be in the summer. So saying that we have to use the zodiac would be completely wrong, because that would mean that I would have to wait till it was now here to start making a Pesach. And this would be already much after the cutting of the Seorim and the Chittim. So the whole Oimer would fall away. I mean, it's going to be completely absurd, and it's definitely not going to be in the Oviv anymore. So the answer from the Kuzari, that was my shir today, that we're looking at the Tekufos. I also spoke to once a Rov, and he also told me, nein, aber do anderes Tekufos, there is another Tekufos that is complicated, that's why, but this is not right. It's definitely the only Tekufos that we can use is the Tekufos that we are using today, which is the 21st of March. And indeed, if we go back in time, it was that Pesach fell in the winter. There is nothing to do about that. Pesach did definitively fall in the winter 1,500 years ago, in the beginning of the calendar. Unless, as Mr. Eidler wants to say, that the calendar that we have today is maybe 1,000-year old. Before that, they corrected it, they adapted it. What the format that we have today is not so long ago. It started not so long ago. All the dechiyas and the starting points and the moilodos, that the whole moilad is not was not fixed as such. Things have been adapting during the period even after Hillel HaZokin, Hillel HaKotten, sorry. So this is a little bit the story. So when we look on the Kuzari, the date of day is equal to night should not be used, but we should use when we're coming into the muzzle of Tle. This is to be used, and in that case we are in trouble. Basically, the Kuzari, according to Kuzari, today we are celebrating Pesach in the winter. The Rambam it seems to be using the days equal to the night, but definitely not the sidereal areas. So it's not the how do you call it, the tkufa of the tle. So definitely not. So we're looking purely on what we see on this world. We cannot use the stars at the back of the sun. And today, day and night is not a problem, but before 1,000 and 1,500 years, Pesach could be in the winter. But today it's not possible anymore. Today we are okay. And when we look on the stars in 1,500 years ago, it was clear that Pesach was already after the muzzle of Tle, after the beginning. So eventually, if we look at this whole story, so the Tekufos Shmuel is pure mathematical, and it's very much disconnected with any astronomical fact. This is the one we use for the Saint Talmud Livrocha, and also the day that we should not drink water. The Tkufa that the day is equal to the night is definitively the 21st of March. There's no doubt about it, and it's not moving. The entering to the celestial of Aries is on the 14th of April today. So I explained to you, it's quite a long time after that moment. That means that about the time of the Goinim, indeed, those 2 days were the same. So that's why maybe they claimed, they asked for him that say that you can see it either way, either when the days are the same or when the sun goes into the Tkufa of Tle. The question is, what happens in the time of Yetzias Mitzrayim? So if we go back in time, it would come out about, I made a calculation, about the 14th of February. And that means that Yetzias Mitzrayim could be maximum between the 14th of February and the 14th of March. This is still the winter time. So it's interesting that Klal Yisrael, the Torah says that they came out in the Oviv, Shomer es HaChodesh Hazeh, and so it means that it was on Oviv. And according to what we have here, the Mazel Tle is definitively not in on that period. So it's clear to me that it was, if you look at the celestial stars, not. So it's a bit difficult to understand how the Rishonim explain Pesach as being when Klal Yisrael came out, that it was the muzzle of Tle, because it's difficult to say unless there were other items which play a role. Maybe some disturbances coming from meteorites on the world which shook the whole thing. I don't know, but in any case, it's something which doesn't seem to making sense in what we are saying here. Okay, any questions?
Yeah, hi. So just to be clear, so when we keep Pesach as Manazeh during the Chodesh, our Chodesh of Nisan, we are not at all associated to the Mazel of Tle.
No, it's not possible, because when we keep Pesach, it says not the Mazel of Tle. You will look in the stars, you will see that we are still in the winter. We're still in the Mazel of the fish. Yeah.
Yeah, and because the difference is, I think you said 20 minutes between the two ways of doing the Tkufa. So you said 72, every 72 years, it's 1 day.
Yes.
So it's, I mean, like, even 72 years isn't a long time. So even Bizman Chazal, there was no point in creating an association between a Mazel and a Chodesh.
No, you're right. Yeah.
And like, it's funny because we also have Moznaim, no? Isn't that by around Rosh Hashanah?
The same problem. Yeah, it's not Moznaim, is not on Rosh Hashanah anymore. Yeah, it is also, everything is moved. So it's like it's symmetrical. So the things are moved, and also not. It's true that it's not Moznaim. I don't know which one it is, but you can Wikipedia. It will tell you the dates, the astrological dates, which are the dates that we know from Chazal as well, and then which are the real dates that. There is a problem, is how do you define the beginning and the end? So we don't have clear pictures. When is the beginning of Tle and the end of Tle? So this can move still a few days here and there. So it's not 100% clear how it was divided. We don't have pictures, but yeah.
No, it's really interesting because, like, what I'm saying is probably stupid, but like, you know, it's written, they always, they look at the mazolos and all that to know what's going to happen, right?
Yes.
And now on a very basic level, I would say they look at the mazolos, meaning they're going to look at what mazal it is of the chodesh. Like, it's strange. Like, what do you mean you don't know? You follow the solar year, you know what month you're in, so you'll know what mazal it is. But according to what you're saying, it's very geschmack because it taka changes. So they always had to check to make sure what one it was.
Yeah, but where the astrology is, they go according like us. The astrologists, those who believe in astrology, they are actually saying it's the 21st of March till the 20th of April is the Mazel Tle. And they say, that's it. Although you see it, it's not like that. But they say, yeah, no, but we don't look at this. We look at the calendar period, and that's it. They don't look anymore at the stars. They disconnected it with what you see. It is more, it became a name, Mazel Tle. What is the Tle standing for? It used to be for the shapes of the stars, but it's not now. It's just a time of the year that's defined. So there's a whole article about that. You can find out, well, my astrological sign is wrong. And since I think like 20 years ago, it popped up, and it made a big wave in the world of astrology, because the people, the Amoino Am, as they say, they realized. I mean, somebody told them that, you think that this is Tle is in March, end of March. Well, it's still fish. I mean, in the constellation, you're still a fish, and nobody knew, only the astronomist. But then it became known, and then people started to people who believed this. What's going on? I thought I was born in Tle if I was born on the 1st of April, for example. Then no, your real zodiac sign is fish. So the machlokes is, do we go according to how it was original, or we go according to how it is now? That's the machlokes aposkim between the astrologists. Okay. All right. So it's still work in progress, as you can imagine. So we will hopefully maybe in Parshas Boy, maybe I will find somebody who is going to answer us and tell us the real answer. But as I said, the Rambam has a way out. He says it's the 9th sphere. So it says that, no, but what you see is not what you have to look at. That was only the way to name it, but the position is like that, and therefore this is the position of the spring, which it doesn't help me, because the Rambam does not believe in astrology. So the only way that he can use it is to know when to start spring. But if I can't see it in the stars, so what do I do anyway? So that's the Rambam. The Kuzari is very difficult, as I explained you. It does not answer us at all. In the contrary, makes it even more difficult. And so the only good thing about it is that today, from now on till Moshiach will come, there will never be Pesach in the winter. But 1,000 years ago, it was theoretically possible. And still, even if it happened, it doesn't mean that Pesach was not Pesach, as the Rambam says that when there is a Kiddush HaChodesh and Ibur Shono, which is against the halacha, it is still valid, even if they do bemezit, if a Bezdin does it. So even if it was done with an error or whatever it is, that's not a problem. The Pesach is still Pesach, because the Bezdin has a koyach to do whatever they want when it comes to the calendar. It's up to you. It's you. You can do. We human beings, we can decide to do, even if it goes against the halacha, which the Rambam calls bemezit, which may mean also in this case that the Pesach would fall a day or two in the winter. All right. Thank you very much. If there is no more question. So I will stop.